we continue to focus on the two hardest hit areas of the state, those served by our Simsbury and Tallinn work centers. In the Simsbury, which is in the Farmington Valley area, we have now have 597 crews working in that area. And in Tallinn, we have 661 crews. To put that in perspective, in those two work centers, we have the same crews about 3 times or double our normal workforce when you look at both line and tree for both those work centers. Today, we also put a management structure to support that amount of people working in the area. Jim Muntz, who is the president of our transmission group, is overseeing all the work in the Simsbury area. And Ken Bowes, who is the vice president of energy delivery and was formerly the vice president of customer operations, is overseeing the work in the Tallinn area. We still expect to have 100% of our customers who were affected by this storm restored Wednesday night. And many of you have heard me say from the very start how big this storm was. And I'd actually like to share with you some information, but we talk about the snowfall amounts to the number of crews, and right now for CL&P, we're 10 times our normal workforce. First of all, you're looking at this is the CL&P trouble spots from that we shared with everybody with Tropical Storm Irene. And as you see, we had more than 16,000 trouble spots, primarily focused around here, and then widespread damage on the eastern part of the state. Now you take a comparison. And those are the trouble spots from the current storm. And as you can see, in the center part of the state, where we have a significant amount of outages still going on, it was extremely hard hit. And that's where our crews and our people are continue to work to restore our customers as quickly as possible. As far as our overall restoration, when you look at our restoration curve, as I shared with you early on, this storm had a peak of 831,000 customers out of power at the peak, compared to 671,000 for Tropical Storm Irene. And that gives you an overview of the restoration rate we've achieved during this past number of days as we've continued to move forward. When you look at it, I think what you'll see is, given the magnitude of this storm, as we go through the reviews, which I welcome, I think it's very important to have reviews of these type of events, both internally, and I welcome the external reviews as well, because I think they will show that in many areas we have strengths, and I also know that they'll show areas where we need to improve on some of our weaknesses. I realize one area that we need to focus on, and that's around communications and coordinations during the storm. They have been and they continue to be an issue in some towns. While we have had successes in many towns, I simply know in others that it has not worked, and it's an area that we have to focus on and change in order to meet the needs of every town that we serve. And I realize when you talk about communications and coordinations, it's critical to the towns. These two issues have led to most of the frustration among the town leaders. I understand why, and I personally apologize for CL&P not meeting the needs of the towns. This is an area where we're focusing on improvement after Irene, because many of those same challenges came up with the magnitude of that event. However, given the fact that that happened less than 60 days ago, we had not completed our reviews and certainly had not completed the implementation of some of the lessons learned that came out of that storm. Now on another note, I understand and I know there's a lot of people who are unhappy with me personally and frustrated with and angry with CL&P. I only ask that you support the hardworking men and women working around the clock to get everybody restored. I want them to all know how proud I am of them. We have not only our own employees from CL&P, all the hundreds and thousands of people from Northeast Utilities, but also thousands of people that left their homes across the United States and across Canada to come here to support restoring power to the citizens of Connecticut. And I am very proud of them, and I owe them my thanks. With that, I'll turn over to questions to all of you.
Jeffrey, I've been in both of those districts a few times in the past, whatever it is now, 10 days, and without fail, the leaders there say they don't get anything from you. In Simsbury today, they said, Mary Glassman said, and I was listening in. I was eavesdropping when you were on the speakerphone with Mary Glassman, the first selectman in Simsbury, and she was saying they're getting no communication. You weren't telling them anything. And then that puts them in a difficult spot because everyone in town knows who the town leaders are, and they got nothing to say.
And I just acknowledge that. That was a breakdown. Like I said, many towns it worked very well. We've gotten compliments from towns. In others, it hasn't worked. We need to understand why it worked so well in some towns, why it didn't in others, and we will address that going forward. Because my expectation is that it works well in all 149 towns that we serve going forward.
One other thing, before you go to the next question, we've heard from people who have heard you on the radio and the television saying that if your neighborhood is up and you're still got no lights, call us. People can't get through. There's a lady there in Simsbury today. She had to drive to the town hall to tell the town leaders that I can't get through. I'm the only one on my street without power. I can't get through.
That is the first time I've heard any type of issue of being able to get through. I assume that the individual was calling our call center.
Yes.
I have not heard of an issue. That is certainly one that I will
take. If you're only down to 45,000 and you can't handle, that many calls, then there's something wrong.
Well, I have not heard of any issues through our call center, so that will be one that I'll have to take back, because we've been able to, just as we did our Irene, process the calls, and our customers' concerns. It's one I will follow up on.
Mr. Butler,
Yes.
the governor just had a news conference and had some pretty harsh words, and they were asked about standards and this private consulting firm that has been now put in charge of looking at what went wrong. But he said he's going to judge you by your own standards and that you failed. How do you respond to that?
Well, I would wait to hear what the reviews say, both our internal and externals, before we pass judgment. I absolutely believe there's areas that we can improve. But I think, as I said just a minute ago, when you look at the magnitude of this storm, an unprecedented storm that hit Connecticut in the last week of October, I think you'll find that there was many things that we did very, very well. And there's areas that obviously, especially around communication and coordination with the towns, that I absolutely know we need to improve on.
Mr. Butler. Where's Mr. Shivery?
Pardon me?
Where's Mr. Shivery?
Mr. Shivery has been at our emergency operating center since the start of this storm. I meet with him regularly, not only him, but Lee Olivier, who is also, who I report to, but is also the Chief Operating Officer for Northeast Utilities. They have been instrumental in the management team with CL&P as we continue to move forward in this event.
Mr. Butler, on Sunday morning, you released town-by-town estimates for restoration for each town. And I'll just give you one example, because this is typical throughout the Farmington Valley. For midnight last night, you said West Hartford, the restoration projection for 99%, was that you would have 771 customers out by midnight last night. 12 hours later at noon in West Hartford, there were 11,000 customers out. So that's 11 times, more than 11 times more. What changed from Sunday morning at 8 a.m. when you came up with these predictions to now, where there's still, and we're not just talking a couple dozen, a couple hundred, we're talking an order of magnitude more without power. What was the change?
The degree of damage, the extent of getting the repairs done, the time it took, and that's obviously an area that we're going to have to look at as we put these estimates together. I will tell you, we were very aggressive with a focus on getting our customers restored as quickly as possible, but we're going to have to step back and find out what went on, or what didn't work well when we missed our projections by that much. So that will be a focus.
7 days following the storm, you were still surprised by the amount of damage in West Hartford and Avon and Farmington, those other towns where you could be off by a factor of 10. Did you not do the amount of damage assessment that you needed to do, not just on Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, but on Sunday, the restoration projections have been so not even ballpark?
I think that the rest assessments were taken care of. The real issue is how long we projected it would take work to get through those trouble spots. We have continued to get, as was mentioned earlier, the single services. When you look at the information from this storm, even as we compare it against Irene and other storms, you will find that literally thousands of more service drops we have lost as a result of trees coming down on customers' property, taking out not only our service drops, but the telecommunication as well. They will literally be probably magnitudes higher than anything we've ever seen. And that has, that takes work That takes people to get that done as well.
But you
So
have
we'll
that frustration
evaluate
for a
the.
town leader. It's not like this was the restoration estimate that you gave hours after the storm. This was a full week later, and towns were relying on these restoration estimates for what they were going to do with their shelters, how much more bedding and food and all that kind of stuff they would need at their shelters. And, I mean, they're not even close, let's be honest.
And that's what I acknowledged a minute ago, is I understand their frustration.
Why are people not seeing the trucks to follow what Mark said? In Simsbury, even as of last night, you talked about all these crews. Why is the average person, why are residents reporting they just don't see your trucks out there?
Well, I know when I've been out there, I see the trucks, so I'm not sure where people
Why
are
aren't they
saying.
turning on the lights then?
I think if you look at this, I'd like to point out again this restoration curve. There's been a lot of lights turned on in the last 8 days, from a peak of 831,000. And that doesn't even include all the things that happen day in and day out. As I mentioned early on, this 831,000 there is the peak. I expect that by the time this storm is restored, that we will have restored well over 900,000. And for example, today, a car pull here in downtown Hartford that takes customers out. We have to pull crews back to repair those as well.
What's causing the anger, though, Jeffrey, some of it, is that people see these crews, caravans of crews, parked, and that some people are reporting to us that they talk to them and they say, oh, yeah, they had us sitting down there for 4 hours with nothing to do. This was an incident just within the last half hour that I received. Crews that were from out of state, parked and sent to a town in south of Hartford, had nothing to do for 4 hours. Then they send them up to Lakeville, and they're sitting up there watching the sunset.
I don't know the specifics you're referring to, but I do know one of the challenges when I look at it that we're going to have to step back and look at. We're operating a company 10 times the size
Right,
we
and
normally
you are
are.
having deployment
And having
time.
the structure in place to support that will be something we have to look at.
Mr. Butler,
Yes.
when you look at the numbers now at 40,000, we are getting a lot of reports of people, 3 or 4 houses on one street that are out, so those aren't included in those numbers.
Yes, they are.
But if they haven't called in, well, CL&P is telling them you are restored, and the people are saying no, we aren't. And there's quite a few. But the question is, are you still confident now that you've seen the damage today, that you've seen the worst hit areas, maybe in the neighborhoods on the mountains where crews haven't been able to get to yet? Can you still stick to that 100% number for Wednesday? And your crews are out in force. We're seeing a lot of them today, but can you still stick for every single person in this state? Can they plan on having power Wednesday still?
We have had that discussion, and we still expect to be at 100% Wednesday night.
What will CL?
Now, that's assuming people have reported outages. As you mentioned, there's people that haven't ever called in, their neighborhood's restored, they have a problem with their service. Unless they call us, we do not know it. So if we get calls late Wednesday night or Wednesday afternoon, we get a whole bunch of calls on late Wednesday, we may not get all those done Wednesday night. That's why I stress over and over again, if your neighborhood gets restored and your lights haven't come back on, please call us as soon as possible.
What can CL&P do to restore its credibility with Connecticut? I think, would you agree it's been shredded?
Well, I think there's certainly challenges. I look at it, in many parts of the states, we met expectations. I think we step back, do the reviews, find out what worked well, where there's opportunities to improve, and I welcome that. Because I do believe you'll find in many cases, compare these two curves. Look at the amount of damage from Irene, which we talked about 60 days ago as being a record storm. This thing's far greater. There will be things we find that we did very well and things that we need to improve on. One last question.
Associates asked for documents from CL&P or Northeast Utilities. I guess first off, have you ever worked with that company, or do you know if Northeast Utilities ever has, and how quickly you're going to be able to turn those documents over?
I don't recall personally ever working with them, either here or in my where I formerly worked, and I'm not aware that I don't know whether Northeast Utilities has or not. I can certainly ask questions and see if there has been. So I don't know the answer to that.
Are you going to be turning them over?
As I've said many, many times, I welcome the review. I shared with the governor's staff tonight that I'll personally participate. We'll identify all the right people to be included in this review, and we'll provide all the information that the WIT company is looking for to support a thorough review and find out what worked well. So with that, thank you very much.
Are you planning to subject yourself to this